All right. I think HCC is on the agenda to start. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll call this meeting of the Historic District Commission to order, a joint meeting with the Nantucket Historic Commission for the certified local government. All in favor of the agenda, say aye.
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 Oh, and you know what? I think we need to do a voice. So Val, thank you. I think I heard an aye. Joe Paul,
Aye.
Angus,
Aye.
Connie.
Aye.
I don't see Abby. Is she here with us?
No, Abby Camp.
Okay, so it's who's here is and I'm an aye. On to the Historic Commission.
This is Angus MacLeod, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission, and I will call to order our meeting with roll call. Abby DeMolina.
Aye.
Rita Carr.
Yeah.
Clement Durkis.
Here.
I'm not sure if I've got a big enough screen to see everybody. Did I get everybody?
Mr. Chair, yes, I believe it's Clement, Rita, Abby, and yourself for 4 members from the Historical Commission.
Thank you, Holly.
All right, with that, I guess I want to welcome you all. Thank you for this yearly meeting. I know that we've kind of done it because we have to, but we want to move forward and do it because we want to, and maybe introduce as the year goes on for the next fiscal year, which starts next week, to do them sooner rather than later, and maybe more than one, with a couple of topics, and make them shorter than we've had in the past as well. So you saw in the posted agenda the reasons why we are a CLG, and really at the end of the day, this is a form of preservation through our public and private partnerships, but this also allows us the eligibility to apply for those federal grants we've done in the past, have a stronger role in nominating properties to the National Register, increase technical assistance from MHC and the National Park Service. And then we're also, as a town, officially acknowledging the local government's commitment to historic preservation. And on that note, you all please let me know, both commissions, if you have not been receiving anything individually to your emails from NAPC. As a CLG, we received funding for, basically they paid for our year subscription, our membership to NAPC. So, which was just basically a continuation of our membership as from before. So this basically allows us to continue doing the survey work, created the survey plan, which is behind me on our which is on the town's website, and I'll get into that further, but I just wanted to do a kickoff and welcome you all, and thank you for taking the time to be here today. So with that, I think maybe we want to get into our basically the biggest aspect of our meeting, of talking about the CLG discussions of a couple of topics which are on your agenda. So I'll leave it to I guess maybe the chair of the HDC.
Thanks, Holly. Appreciate it. And obviously we appreciate the work you're doing to keep us afloat here. I think what we have first on the agenda, pulling it up, is the super index, building with Nantucket in mind. So we the chairs and Holly had a agenda meeting the other day, and one of the topics that came up was how the Nantucket Historic Commission would like to assist the HDC, and a couple of different ideas had come up that I understand the Historic Commission has discussed. And the end result of that was that I put forth the concept of a tool that will help the HDC help applicants and applicants' agents to better understand and utilize building with Nantucket in mind. And it's a wonderful resource. I think we all agree. I think many of us who utilize it also understand and would agree that there's difficulty in locating the information relative to particular architectural elements. For instance, dormers. There may be 13 different locations within the building with Nantucket in mind where dormers are referenced. The idea here is that through collaboration, through a workshop, to kind of narrow down and suss out and come up with the final goal. The overall goal is to develop between HCC members and the Historic Commission members an index that is basically, let me use an example. Dormers in the index may now read dormers ... and there's a list of 13 pages. The idea would be instead where dormers are listed and it indicates the 3 feet from the rake rule, is the entry would be dormers in parenthetic phrase 3 feet rule or something to that effect. And then it would indicate the page number. Then there will be a reference to similarly dormers and obstructing roof planes, because one of the building with Nantucket in mind guidelines is that we don't want dormers. We don't want, being it's historically not typical, to take over a roof plane. That would again have a parenthetic phrase and a ... The idea here is that at the HDC, as opposed to, for instance, a video of dormers, which, by the way, is a great idea and could be used with the realtor, the local brokers association, and other entities in an educational forum, be posted to a website for potential new buyers and others interested in Nantucket architecture to view. The idea with this approach is that it's actually a hands-on tool that can be used by the HDC, not only for directing applicants and applicant agents to what's appropriate and what's inappropriate at a meeting, for instance, but it's also a tool the HDC can use to help make it more succinct, take us away from designing at the table a little bit, and focusing people back on our core rules, if you will, which is building with Nantucket in mind, certainly our guidelines. So it has a variety of uses, and it's a tool with a variety of utilities. The other utility, and I'm just going to wrap up here in a second, is that it will help to bring if used judiciously, it will help HDC commissioners to be focusing more on building with Nantucket in mind versus what we're all a little bit at fault of is our romantic notion and our sentimental notation of what actually is appropriate and what isn't. And it will also, as a result of this whole process and being used at meetings, help applicants' agents to see that, gee, if I use building with Nantucket in mind, I might get a consentable project right out of the gate. Keeping in mind that because of the consent review process the HCC undertakes, any application that's actually heard at a hearing is deemed to be non-consentable. So there is some give and take or some complexity that doesn't meet the guidelines. This tool, in summary, would give the HDC commissioners a way to succinctly state what you need to work on, and please come back with those revisions. And for that reason, I think it'd be really helpful. Last comment on this is that it also gives us, we being the Historic Commission and the Historic District Commission, a manner to work together collaboratively on a relatively small project that has potentially big returns, not only as have just been outlined, but with respect to working together in the future, developing some small successes, developing the sense that we are being collaborative, because we are. And I think that starts to open the door up to videos and that bigger chunk on the horizon, hopefully not too distant out, which is a rewrite of building with Nantucket in mind. So that's the background on that. Holly, did you want to add anything, or Angus and then Holly, whichever?
That was great, Stephen. Thank you for saying all that. I think you've mentioned all the benefits, how it would work. Yeah, should we open it up to commissioners to comment and see if we have any suggestions or questions about that?
No, I think that's a great idea. Just let's tap Holly, see if there's anything she wants to add first.
Thank you. I did want to bring up since we have it digital, it's not the best format, but I wanted to show an example of something that I think would be great to outline within this index. Is here's a proper example of additive massing, where you have the one mass that dominates others. They're all adjoined. Something that I think that is always brought up in addition to the dormers, as Stephen has mentioned. So I just wanted to show. And for those that don't know, or just a refresher, all of the sections of Building with Nantucket in Mind as it's written and the addendums are on the website, but really and truly having this index would help make things a lot clearer, easier. And so I think this would be a great initiative to go through.
Thanks, Holly. I'm going to ask that if you don't mind, I have you guys on a phone, so I can have my laptop open. The camera doesn't work on that. Can you identify people who might want to speak? And we'll just call them in that order.
Sounds good.
Nobody's hand raised though.
Everyone
are we
loves the idea. I'm sorry, is that
You're
Joe?
just looking for comments from the HTC commissioners? This is Joe Paul speaking.
I think we can open it up to the whole group, but yeah, we're just curious, do you knee-jerk reaction or initial reaction, I should say, a little bit more refined. Is this something you think is something you support? It's something you would want to be involved in? So, because the next step, which we've already discussed at the chair level, and Holly has agreed to, is to put out a quick survey form on schedule a workshop. And that would be the idea is to do like maybe a half an hour initial, finalize the concept, establish action items, move on the action items through delegation. And then the next workshop is to start to look at what's being compiled and, wrap this thing up in maybe 3 meetings over the course of the next month.
Well, I have a gut reaction. Joe speaking. It sounds like a great idea. I think applicants would appreciate some visual reference along with all of the verbal comments that are made at meetings, which I think the meetings are severely lacking. And, we've started to sketch on applications, these exhibit A's, and I think that's been helpful, but certainly tying back to Building with Nantucket in Mind makes a lot of sense. And I can remember in my early days on Nantucket 25 years ago, everybody in the office had that book tabbed and marked, and we would bring it to meetings occasionally. And I think it was referred to certainly more often than it is now. And the methodology that you're talking about, the super index, if it's referring to like that figure of the additive massing, seems like an opportunity to, how do I put this? Elaborate on various areas in a visual way without having to completely overhaul the book. So if we as a group say, oh, you know what? This little thumbnail sketch of additive massing or of dormers would be a huge help. That just gets referenced to the super index. And now we've expanded the text in a way for items that come up. So I think it starts to not only use the book we have, but maybe starts to inform where the book needs to go. So I think it will be very helpful for everybody involved. And those are my initial comments.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. I'm just going to comment on these, I think, for the benefit of everyone else, if it's worthwhile for them. I think this is a really great idea. We'll see what others think. What I would suggest is that we try and mold this into the framework as part of a 2-step process. So we would do the kind of heavy lifting of the text version. So we would have a work product that we could get out right away. And then we would supplement with volunteers who might want to do illustrations. And then as those illustrations come in, perhaps on a prioritized basis, for instance, additive massing is generally more important than dormers. depending on where the home is located and how visible it is. But that might be a way that we approach it. And we could kind of hammer that out, velvet hammers, of course, in the workshop. Anyone else, Holly or Angus?
I'm not seeing anyone raising their hand. I think that with something that is as visual as what we're talking about, it's immensely useful for people to have a visual representation of what's being described. And I don't think that it needs to be in the beginning any more involved than attaching the attached or referencing the attached photos, not photos, but sketches that already exist in Building with Nantucket in Mind. So we don't have to like rewrite it or draw new examples. That could be something that we add later of like success and failure out in the field. But to begin with, it could just be what's in the book.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea too. Anyone else out there? Okay, so I think what we're going to do is what we said. We're going to work with Holly and go ahead to the next step and work on scheduling a workshop. And I guess what I'd like to do is to help move that along. Is there anyone who feels like, starting this, say, the second week of July, with the idea of having a few meetings over the course of the summer and wrapping it up, isn't going to work for them? Maybe you could just, if it isn't going to work for you, put your hand up. And to Holly, again, I can't see. We'll get a sense of the meeting of who would be participating on that timeline. So if that timeline of mid-July through sometime in August isn't going to work, please put your hand up.
I'm actually putting my hand up as your staff.
Okay. No, this is important. Yeah.
On that note, you all probably have heard that myself and Nikki have been awarded a scholarship to go to the National Alliance of Preservation Commission's forum in Florida. And we're going to be leaving at the end of July and through the beginning of August for a few days. So I'm very excited about that. And personally, I have family coming in July. So I want to see this momentum going. But if we could hold till maybe August to really get that ball rolling, I would be most appreciative.
Okay, Holly, I'm actually going to make a suggestion on that because I think that I totally get what you're saying and we want you involved. But I think the idea is that we could pursue just the kind of Scrivener role, which is, gathering the text and putting together the list by, simply based upon what's within Building with Nantucket in Mind now. And then perhaps doing more refinements, adding additional information from your perspective of items that are currently not in the index that you would like to see indexed. And then also, getting you involved on the illustration side if that's something you wanted to be involved in. So we get the best of both worlds, right? We'd get the project started, and we'd also get you involved. And one way we might address this is we only have one meeting in July, just to kind of delegate, find out who's interested in doing what. Basically, anyone who's involved will be doing the same thing. And we might alphabetically, if there's 4 people, we might divide the alphabet up, or divide the pages up evenly and say, hey, you start. Here's what I'm going to do is I have actually already done it. I've created a digital version that is of the Building with Nantucket in Mind that is word searchable. So, and I have a software program that allows you to search and see a whole list of the relevant search results by page number. And I think that will facilitate making this easier for people. Are you good with that?
Are you asking everybody? Oh.
Well, Holly first, because no one had an issue with meeting in July. So she had voiced a concern and I wanted to make sure we're being respectful of her wanting to be involved.
No, I appreciate that. No, I'm fine with that. And Joe Paul has his hand raised.
Okay. Hey, Joe, go ahead.
Sorry, I raised and lowered my hand by accident. I'm fine with the time frame.
Okay, so sounds good. So yeah, why don't we plan on maybe Holly, if you would be so kind as to set up maybe second week of July a meeting, and I would just say open it up. I know everyone on the HCC's Tuesday evenings are busy. For me, I'm on capital program. I won't be in July, and I think you know the schedule with planning board. Abby's on planning board, and so on and so forth. So if you can maybe pick a couple of days, and can I just ask by a show of hands, is there anyone who's interested in being involved who would not be available on a Saturday morning? I'll bring the coffee and the bagels, and we can spend a half an hour together. I wouldn't ask on a Sunday, but if people aren't interested, that's fine. But I just want to try and give Holly some guidance on what days to try and put into the schedule for our survey.
So Stephen, what you're suggesting was the first or second week, so that would be the 6th or the 13th for a Saturday? Or
Yeah,
the
and I'm thinking
14th.
I'm actually thinking the second week, let everybody get a little taste of summer before we tie them up in a meeting.
The only thing that's happening is there's a memorial service for Ken on the 13th at 11.
Yeah.
So, and I'm actually away the following weekend. So, any other time than that 11 o'clock on the 13th or the 14th is fine with me.
Okay, so by a show of hands, is there anyone who, understanding you all need to look at calendars, and Holly will be sending out a schedule so you'll be able to update this. Is there anyone who would feel that maybe an 8 or 9 a.m. on a Saturday is out of line? I won't ask you to do 5:30 when I'm ready to go.
That would be good with me.
Okay, so just show hands anyone who's interested in participating, who thinks that's just not something they can do. Again, acknowledging you may have to change your mind later because you look at your calendar, you see a scheduling conflict.
On a Saturday, I would prefer 9, but I'm not going to be
I agree with
Sounds
Joe.
good.
Shall we
I mean,
say
that-
9 on the
9.
13th?
Okay, so Holly, would you please add that Saturday at 9, and maybe everyone's going to coalesce around that. It'll simplify it for everyone.
Saturday, the 13th at 9.
Yes.
Will
Yeah.
do.
By the way, I was going to refer to this as advanced index, but the acronym would be AI, and I don't want people thinking that they can be designing a Nantucket home by AI. Not yet. We're not there. Memorandum
That
of
the rules are being
understanding.
rewritten by AI.
Yeah, well, the rules literally are being rewritten by AI, but in a broader sense.
Yeah.
Are you guys, Angus, you ready for us to move on to the memorandum of understanding?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm going to do the intro on that one. We basically, when the HDC was initially involved in the process to become a CLG, one of the requirements we established as just a matter of best practices, which I'll get into in a moment, is a memorandum of understanding. And that memorandum of understanding, I believe, in essence stated that what we voted was that we would reach a memorandum of understanding that outlined the respective parties' statutory responsibilities and duties. We have a document that addresses this. I think it's in our packet. Holly listed the duties, and we would basically transform that. I did a draft of this quite a few years ago. And then it kind of morphed into something else. The idea here is that this doesn't become a work list. We could be adding comments that, in addition to our normal duties and responsibilities, our normal being respectively as the Nantucket Historic District Commission and separately as the Nantucket Historic Commission, that as the CLG, we are interested in working to further this general concept through further collaborative efforts. I don't see an issue with that so long as it doesn't pin us down to anything in particular other than what's consistent with the duties of the CLG, because of course we need to be working within our regulatory framework. That's the idea. I see this as a relatively short lift. It's a pretty finite scope, and those were the thoughts when I made the motion at the time we voted to join the CLG. And those are the thoughts when we had the chairs meeting. And I'll open this to Angus, and please, give us your thoughts.
Well, I don't have anything to add except to just open it up to the commissioners if you have any comments or
Perfect.
questions.
Perfect.
So
Thanks.
if
Holly,
I
if you see
may,
people. Yeah, Holly.
yep. And I apologize, I didn't send it to her earlier, but this is the version from December of 2021. It's been a while. I think we kind of put it on to the side, and this was the version I think that Stephen, you had last looked at. I actually, on the top of it says draft MOU, your name, and then my initials as well. So you and I had some comments on here. I just sent this out to you all today. This is the version I believe that we wanted to kind of streamline, if you will. So I just wanted to say that we kind of, for those that haven't been involved from the beginning of being a CLG, there is a required MOU between both commissions as a requirement with the state. So not every single CLG within the Commonwealth have the benefit of having two commissions. There are other communities like Framingham. There's a couple other ones. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's more than just us that have two. So you're required to have an MOU. But because Nantucket, as we know, is unique, we have our special act, we don't follow 40C, there's all these different uniqueness of it. We thought that it would be a good idea to have our own separate, outside of the requirements of the state, to have our own internal MOU and kind of figure out, what we would want to see on there. So just to summarize a little bit more as what Stephen said. And I would love to kind of wrap this up, now I think we're on a better momentum, if you will. And yeah, so there we go.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going to jump in real quick before we take comments. The copy that you sent out is the copy I received. It looks to be the last copy that I drafted and sent to you. You did make comments I thought were very helpful. And it seems to me the idea would be subject to thoughts of the other members. The goal here, and I want to mention this now, so everyone, when you make a comment, you can comment on the process that's being conceptualized too, is that we would follow the model of scheduling something as a workshop. Interested members could attend, and we can have a half-hour meeting or 45-minute meeting and kind of work through this and then move it to the next phase. And I would anticipate the second phase would be to quickly finalize a draft, have the chairs review the draft and bring it to the respective commissions during one of their regular meetings for review and a vote. And then we would get together with the finalized drafting. I think that it would be appropriate that now that the fountain is up downtown, we could have a small ceremony, maybe some ribbons draped across the street. We could each cut a ribbon on each side of the fountain and have our signing done then. Holly, anyone with questions or comments?
I don't see any hands, but please jump in, anybody.
I'm going to jump in. Hi, it's Clement. As I recall, the Historic Commission wrote its own kind of draft of the MOU. I assume that was taken into consideration. I haven't read this one since I feel like I just got it, but so I appreciate your timeline to look over all of this because I'd love to look it over. But I want the other one incorporated as well, and I can't remember if I've got a copy of it or not.
Thanks, Clement.
Yeah, go ahead, Angus.
Well, I would, in the new draft, were there any key points that were or weren't included from the previous draft?
You're speaking to me?
Sure, you or Holly.
Yeah, so this is actually the original draft. And then what happened is it went to the Historic Commission and there were quite a few add-ons. And it basically became a working paper for general and specific projects that then members of the Historic Commission were interested in pursuing, which is out of context of what the HDC voted when it accepted the concept of CLG. What we were looking for is a baseline foundational MOU that outlines what the respective parties' duties and responsibilities are, and then how they would work together within the context of what the duties and responsibilities of the CLG are. CLG, and that's when I reference working goals. Basically the document that we received back from the Historic Commission was a list. Well, it wasn't a list. I'm not trying to diminish the work product, but in essence, with respect to the difference, it was a recharacterization of the nature of the MOU well beyond what the HDC voted and anticipated and voted, and also outside the bounds of having just a foundational working document. So what the idea is to get back to what was originally asked for by the HDC, because that's what we voted in order to become a member of the CLG. And if there is going to be a secondary aspect of this, which is working goals, we could have a reference to working goals within the MOU. I presume it would be the list of items that were included in the Historic Commission's draft, or a revised version of that. And it would also include HDC working goals. But I think going into that level of detail without first developing a collaborative working environment is problematic, because, well, first of all, it's going to take longer to get through. And second of all, I think we need, given some of the history that's transpired, to feel that it's a collaborative work effort. And so I would encourage the membership to consider those points and understand that this is not a kick the can down the road. It is a rational, sequential process to attain the goals that are of interest to everyone.
Good.
That's what I got.
Does that help, Clement?
Yes, no, I was just wondering about what we'd done prior and what this was, since I haven't even read it. So I'm pleased with that. That's great.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay. Maybe what we would do is Angus and other members. Well, first of all, does anyone else have comments? Holly, do you see a hand?
Abby has her hand raised. Abby DeLamina.
Hey, Abby.
Hi, Stephen, I was just going to say, I think I came in after the previous drafts, but based on, how I work when we do project planning, I think your idea of kind of establishing a baseline first, and then maybe if we want to do respective work groups or whatever, coming up with more specifics, I think that's a good idea, especially because if we're going to memorialize the MOU, we should make sure that it's not something that immediately gets stale, where if you put a specific goal and then we achieve it, then someone would look at that document and see it was outdated. So that would just be kind of along the lines of what you're saying, is maybe keeping it more general so that it's something that will stand test over time, and then working on the specifics kind of separately, so that I do think it's valid for both groups to do that, but just maybe not in this document, so that the official version ends up being something that can be referenced in the future.
Thanks, Abby. I think that's insightful and helpful. I appreciate it. And I think the concept of work groups, workshops for the individual topics is a great one. And that just kind of feeds back, that creates a positive feedback loop, right? Where we're doing these workshops, we're working together, we get to understand who's who and what they're about, and that we're all really interested in doing, protecting Nantucket, which I think we all believe, but it just helps to establish that foundational relationship too. So it's a good process to follow. Any other thoughts on that this time?
Just how we would start with it.
So what I'd suggest is we let's do we are going into summer, and not to overburden everyone. I think what I would suggest is, well, let me ask you this. I think that what we could do is I think we're all pretty clear on what we're trying to accomplish. There doesn't seem to be anyone who has a material concern. You all will have the draft. The draft gets into the details being what our respective roles and responsibilities are and what our collective roles and responsibilities are. Those are derived from statute. This isn't, stuff that was just determined kind of on the fly. And I think the best approach may be, and I want feedback on this, but I want to try and give this some direction at the same time, is that everyone has the draft Holly just sent out. We would put it on our respective agendas, and our members could in an open meeting give comments. Again, trying to narrowly focus on what the intent of the document is. And then we could, once we've established that there is a consensus, I would hope for unanimity, but it may not be. But I would hope for that. We could schedule another meeting, I think a workshop meeting to finalize the draft. And that I would think we could do maybe depending, how if we put this on our agenda for not this Tuesday, because our agenda notice already went out, but the following Tuesday, and you guys do the same, and everyone has reviewed it, and they're like, yeah, look, there's some things we need to resolve here, but they're pretty minor, let's hold for minor revisions in the lexicon of the HDC, then we would just schedule a workshop, and we might even do this the same morning we do the super def index, and we can move this thing forward. And the alternative, if one of the groups feels like, well, this is not really where we want to go as a majority, then, obviously we have a structural issue, and I think we need to have a bigger, broader meeting before. Angus, thoughts on that, and then open it up to the membership, I think.
So, unlike the HDC, we meet once a month. We just met yesterday, but that was unusual. Normally we meet the third Friday. So the next time that we'll meet will be on the 19th. And between now and then, we could, as you say, have a look at it, and whatever comments we have, put that together, and then we could schedule a meeting and discuss it together.
Okay, I mean, that seems to work. I think as the chair who's responsible for facilitating. How about membership? Do you guys have any thoughts? Holly, if you see a hand. I should say, if you have any.
I think we can work this out pretty quickly. So I think that's great.
Okay, thanks, Clement. Anyone else?
I agree. I think, like Clement said it, I think it's like, I'm just looking through it. I think we could all on our commission look through it. And then, like Angus said, if we have any substantial comments, we could bring them at our meeting on the 19th. And then we do the session after that. I think it should work pretty well. Like, I don't think anybody's going to have major changes. Can't speak for everybody.
So either.
Okay, no, that's great. And I appreciate you guys weighing in on it, because I'm, when I'm speaking on these, I'm trying to, outline that, I understand that it may not just be, oh yeah, that's great. So that's why I give a little bit more wordage, but no, I'm hopeful that it resolves itself the way both Clement, Angus, and Abby have suggested it may. So why don't we proceed that way, and we'll both put it on our schedules for open meeting discussion, and we'll move from there. Okay. Now we get to the I think really a great part of the meeting, where Holly's going to tell us about the she's going to update us. My understanding is on the survey, 100 feet out, HDC members, we don't really get involved in this too much, though we think it's a wonderful tool. And she's going to spotlight some things for us and maybe tell us about where it's going in the future. So without getting any of those details, Holly, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. So you'll see in your agenda, I wanted to give an overview of the brief history of Nantucket's architectural survey and cultural resource surveys that started in the 80s. Something the Historical Commission knows we've always referred to as the 88-89 effort. And, you know, a while back, I found myself digging into the town reports way back in the 80s. And in 1988, believe it or not, there were 549 structured surveys done. The HDC received in August of 1988 a $10,000 MHC grant. Sounds familiar, right? Except for a little money back then compared to today. And this was to do the town, and the actual NHA, Nantucket Historical Association, was also included in this process. That was for some Brant Point areas, the Cliff Road, Old Sherburne, those areas. And then in fiscal year 89, which, by the way, that was when the HDC approved its 20,000th COA. Craziness. They did an intensive survey with AJ Souza. This was basically phase 1. These are the surveys that you see now on is a combination. So you can go online right now and you can see triangles on the GIS, and those are the MHC surveys, MACRIS as we call it, from that's at MHC. A lot of them are the old format from the 80s, but a lot of them have been updated through our survey effort with the Form Bs. And my understanding, during the fiscal year 89, they phase 1 of their survey was a comprehensive project, again with NHA, to look at and start Brant Point, Cliff, Old Sherburne, and then phase 2 was Sconset, Surfside, Mattocket, Quidnet, Monomoy, and Walwinet. They this architectural historian group worked with Helen Chase. She was hired to research and do the history. And then they were planning on, and this was completed in December of 89. And then they were anticipating on completing that work and do the entire island. As we all know, that didn't necessarily happen, but the effort that they decided to do afterwards is why we have a lot of surveys that are not online and not with the state and not with MACRIS. And those surveys really and truly have evolved the methodology with the Form Bs. The state is requiring more of an architectural description, your historical narrative, even providing such important things that the HDC is always looking at, historic photographs, Sanborn documents, those type of things. So we back up. That's pretty much the history of where the survey work started. And now that we're a certified local government from 2021, we are able to tap into those federal funding, and we were able to create the survey plan. You saw in the packet that I gave you all a link to the survey plan. So bear with me for a second. I wanted to get in here. And I also, with the packet, gave you just an excerpt of the plan. I didn't want to, you all are seeing that. Can you see that now? Wrong thing. I got too many things on here. Bear with me. There we go, right here. All right, it's been a while since I've had to share stuff. Okay, so this is on the town's website. If you go to, you can go through the HDC's page, you can go through the Historical Association, or excuse me, the Historical Commission's page, but we have a preservation planning link, and on that, you scroll all the way down the bottom, you'll see the Historic Property Survey Plan, and this will take you right to it. This is our preservation plan. Their preservation plans can be all sorts of different aspects of different levels of planning documents, but this is what I would consider, as well as our consultants, PAL, would consider a preservation plan. So this is what was adopted by the Historical Commission. This is what was approved by the state. And I gave you just a part of chapter 1 and chapter 2, which really talks about the reasons for our survey work. and the threats to these areas. And I really wanted to outline that because if you analyze this document, you're going to see we all know that our survey work is very, very important. Have the entire NHL documented. However, there is a methodology that's been created in this report of figuring out how do we do this? Very daunting. So we had to take out the entire island and create 59 different tangible neighborhoods, if you will. We know Nantucket evolved organically, not necessarily prescriptive with a subdivision, if you will, although that did include. But my point is, through our consultant, they helped us establish what are the threats to your historic and built environment. And that would include these topics: demolition and redevelopment, climate change and sea level rise, and changes in the land and property uses. You will notice, and I'm going to scroll really fast, so bear with me. This document's large, but you're going to see these neighborhoods. There's a lot of different tables in here that it talks about these neighborhood survey units that we had to create, which was very interesting to say the least, but a descriptive of the survey forms, or if there's any at all, and all that kind of thing. But I wanted to get to this is also really helpful. These are the descriptions of the neighborhoods and what would be in there, as well as if there's any existing survey forms available on Macris right now, and even down to a cost assessment, because again, this is a document to help guide us to do the survey work. I wanted to also, let me get back into here for a second. I also wanted to show you, and that's why I gave it to you in the packet. Yeah, here we go. So you all know these are those surveys that we see quite a bit. These are the old survey effort from the 88-89 effort. I try to label it so you all knew. And, it's really a windshield survey. Then this is what we're seeing now, the Form Bs. The Form Bs are what the state calls for building. A is area. There's a whole list of what they associate for acquiring this information, if you will. So this property actually came before, I think, the commission in the last couple of years. I know the survey would have been helpful at that time. This is a draft one that's being reviewed at the moment, but we have our bibliography and references, which is a boilerplate out of the plan, some photos. And then these are the forms that are listed on the state's website. So as you can see, like I mentioned, area, building, object, burial ground, structure, bridge, parks, and landscape. This is what the Form B looks like. You can take it right off that website right there. This is what our consultants use. This is what NPT uses when they need to do a preservation restriction and submit a Form B. I wanted to mention that that's very important to realize that through any of the preservation restrictions that are on island, through that process, if a homeowner wishes to do that, NPT is also assisting in that process, because essentially any old survey has to be updated to this methodology, which is great. So we'll have new ones on file. And so I think where we want to understand is, I don't want to get to that part yet, but these surveys really and truly, as the HDC knows, is helpful to the process, and we want to be able to document all of that. I noted on our what's it called, agenda, we've had, because now that we're a CLG, 3 different projects. One to create the plan and do a pilot of the fish lots area. That is almost, I think I would say 90% done. And then our fiscal 22 project was to finish the fish lots and start in the Brant Point area. We're currently finishing up the review of the last batch, the Historical Commission, myself, for a consultant. So that way MHC can accept them and put them online on the GIS that you all are familiar with. I will tell you this, that I know some people, I think Val included, have said, I can't get the little triangle. I know it can be a little daunting, and that's been a question of mine too, to our GIS guy, Nathan, because unfortunately that's the format we have. But essentially the fact that we have a layer offered to us, and I tell people our goal with this preservation plan of updating these resources, these surveys, and is to see more triangles out of the 2 core districts. We want to be able to see them across the island, meeting, you know, we got structures in Mid-Island, or even I drive by a couple on Pulpus Road that are 200 years old, but there's no HDC surveys on file, no cultural resource surveys, or there's no, you know, secondary source of a research on it. So that would be helpful. I also wanted to plug in Sconset Trust. Through last, I think, year or so, Sconset Trust hired Betsy Tyler and Marcia Fader to update a dozen of these surveys in Sconset, which part, obviously, our survey plan outlines Sconset as a very important area as well. Some of these surveys that they did were not only ones that needed to be updated from the old windshield version, I call it, from the 80s effort, but also new ones as well. And they're scattered across Sconset. So very helpful and very appreciative to Sconset Trust for assisting in that effort. And then we have, as of this past annual town meeting through CPC, basically, I would say we, the town, but through myself and the Historical Commission, are going to be working with PIN, Preservation Institute Nantucket from the University of Florida, and they're going to tackle one of these neighborhoods, which is adjacent to the fish lots, and that would be the Monomoy or New Guinea area, which is the Five Corners area in the survey plan. So I highly recommend to my HDC members, if you haven't had a chance to really look at the survey plan, I encourage you on your free time, whatever that it may be, to take a look at it and see how we've had to kind of arbitrarily create these areas, but at the same time, we had to create them nonetheless so that they were some tangible areas. And the survey plan, as it's outlined, again, like all planning documents, they're a living, breathing document, so they can evolve. But the essence is that this plan will take about 10 years to update, to actually do these surveys. And of course, we can't do this without that public and private partnership. So I'm very grateful that we can lean on the folks at NPT, Sconset Trust, and even the education component of PIN. And the work that PIN's going to be doing is going to be a 2-level process. This first level is a recon survey, and might be a little bit interesting because there's a lot of what we call intangible history that's part of this neighborhood, where those structures are no longer there, but we know the history of them were there. And a case in point for the members of the HDC, you remember Val represented a project, right, what was that, York Street, West York, and that building was built in the 1880s. However, we found out through the research and information, I think that NPT assisted with the owner, that was the site of a church. And I've always heard that there was an AME church there, but had no idea where exactly in the New Guinea area it was. So that information is going to be very, very helpful to, again, documenting this history. And one great aspect, I think, of having this type of project be through the CPC requirements, if you will, is they're going to have a public engagement sessions, a couple. So I think not only, through PIN engaging the community, but we, the town, through the historical commission, as well as this commission, can be a conduit for that and have some public engagement. So be on the lookout. I'll probably be communicating with the commissions on that information, and I'm really looking forward to that. I did want to mention just a couple of things that are in the packet of information I sent you. One was on that recent CLG required training that they asked us to do. We're required to have at least one member from each commission to attend. So if you were able to attend, thank you. But if you weren't able to, take a look at that presentation. I think it's helpful to understand just what the difference is with the National Register. Just do know we as a CLG do have this I guess higher authority away from being able to request certain structures to be indicated on the National Register, higher than the district itself. And I brought in on the packet something that the National Park Service themselves have been looking at over the last couple of years, and that would be the JFK bunker out in Tom Nevers. That is something that I think has been on a few of our radars, that maybe we as a CLG could be requesting the state and the National Park Service to look at even further, especially how the National Park Service has been outlining the Cold War, tangible sites as part of our nation's history even further. So there's some information in the packet for you to look at when you have some free time, but that's pretty much it. And let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Holly. A quick comment. The idea of the JFK bunker, I would just suggest let's fast track whatever we all need to do as a CLG to support that. I think I can't imagine there'd be any resistance to that. I think it would be a wonderful thing to assist on, and it'd be an interesting project to have kind of be our initial first nomination. And just open up to Angus and any of the other members. Thank you.
Holly, thank you for that presentation. Every time that I'm looking at the preservation plan, it really is an impressive document, and I really do want to encourage anyone who hasn't gone through it, not to be intimidated by the size, the scale of it. Even reading the first 5 pages would be helpful. But it's what we all live in and work on and are surrounded by and try to protect. And it really is a very useful document.
Thanks, Angus. Holly, anyone with a hand up would like to comment? Anyone, please feel free.
Abby.
Hey, Abby.
Hi. I was reading the stuff about the Cold War, and I just wanted to agree with you, Stephen and Holly, that I think this might be a really good opportunity for us. And Holly knows that we've done some research on some specific historic preservation grants, and so it might be a good way for us to get some good grant money through the CLG, but also, as you pointed out, Stephen, like this might be a good way to kind of introduce our CLG, if you will, to something that we know the NPS is very keen on. So I would be, happy to support anything to kind of move this forward, because I agree. I think it would be a really good idea to pursue if we can.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else who'd like to comment? Okay. Holly, if you want to maybe, I know, as you said to us in our free time, and I'll say to you in your spare time, understanding there's very little of that, but if you wanted to maybe formulate some thoughts on that, certainly feel free to reach out to me. And I think Angus, it sounds like Abby's interested, and I think that would extend to the rest of the membership of the CLG. But yeah, anything we can do to kind of hasten the process of nomination, I would encourage that we do that.
And you'll see in the packet too that I did include the current article. It's from October of 2020, 2022. So this has been something that's been, discussed, thought about. We know how government can be slow, both on the federal and local side. So I don't know. I don't have any updates. I don't know if MPT has heard any updates at all. But yes, this would definitely, I think, be something that we could ask the state on, if they know where this has moved. And that would probably be my first course of action, frankly, is to reach our CLG coordinator at the state, because she is my point of contact for anything for assistance. And I could ask if she's heard anything further, because if it's not just Nantucket that's outlined, of course, there's other places that Kennedy was associated with during the Cold War in Massachusetts. So, but I'm glad to hear the enthusiasm.
Yes. And
Rita,
I
go
had a-
ahead.
Thank you. I had a question just related to that. In the packet, it was all about the sort of collective national landmark status for the various Civil War defensive sites. If we as a CLG wanted to nominate just the bunker on Nantucket as a national register, just a national register site, not a landmark, would that, that I can't imagine that would get in the way of the larger landmark designation for the collective sites, but is that something we could get clarification on?
Right. Through the chairs to Rita. Yes, I do think we would have to, ask questions on whether or not that's something that we could do. Take the CLG aside, to your point, Rita, because we're a national historic landmark district, the entire island is on the National Register of Historic Places. MHC doesn't necessarily like to nominate something that's already on the National Register. However, because we are a CLG, we can request specific sites. And my point on bringing
the bunker
this
is non-contributing. Sorry.
exactly
Right? Yeah.
Correct. And the fact that there's that, and the fact that there is already momentum at the federal level with their protection of Cold War defensive sites, I think that would help kind of push that along. But I think showing the state that we are interested in this, that this has been a topic that's not new, and what can we do as a CLG to help move it along. I'm very happy to hear the support on that. So I wanted to bring this to a remind. I know, like I said, I know Rita knew, I know Mary knew, because from the preservation side, we're always looking at things like this. But I wanted to bring it to the CLG's attention, because this is something that I think may be very beneficial, and there's been discussions about it in the past. So.
Thanks, Holly. I want to explore with you offline. I think that concept of the HDC weighing in an open meeting, and getting some documentation together for a presentation. And I think it would be it sounds like the Historic Commission's already been working on documentation. There's nothing that precludes the HDC to raising to this structure to a structure of individual significance. And I think that might be a kind of a foundational element as we pursue supporting other interested parties at the federal level. And it might hasten our ability to, get this entered to the National Historic Register. So I just want to broach the topic and let other people be aware that that's now in the thought train. And maybe next week I'll stop in and we'll chat. Anyone else who'd like to share thoughts at this point on this topic or anything else? Any hands? All right, Angus, you want to do a closing statement? Nothing?
Well, it's a pleasure to meet. We do this once a year. I look forward to collaborating, and I think we have some planned topics that are achievable goals, and so speaking on behalf of the Historical Commission, we look forward to working together and doing what we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Angus. I'm going to be succinct and say I agree with Angus. And with that, I'd ask Angus, if you'd be so kind, we open the meeting. Do you want to adjourn yours and then we'll adjourn ours?
Would someone like to make a motion to close our meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Clement. On your motion,
Aye.
Rita?
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
And I as well.
Thanks again.
thank you.
And HTC, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Hey, thanks, Val. On your motion,
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I know Abby wasn't here and Ray isn't here. And Carrie still?
Carrie never was, Connie is.
Connie is, and Connie?
Hi.
And I'm an aye, so that carries unanimously. I really appreciate it, everyone. Thanks so much. I look forward to us getting together in a workshop. And thank you, Holly.
Thank you
Oh, Angus,
all.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Because you were involved
Double.
in the
Aye.
other one. Yeah. All right, great. Thanks
Thank
again,
you
everyone.
all.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.